Rey Rivera was born on June 10, 1973, to Angel and Maria Rivera in Madrid, Spain. He graduated with a degree in communications from the University of the Pacific in 1995, focusing on creative arts and filmmaking. In September 2004, his high school friend Porter Stansbury offered him a job at Stansbury Research, where Rey began writing the Rebound Report, a newsletter recommending turnaround stocks. His creativity proved valuable to both Stansbury Research and its parent company, Agora, which specialized in financial research and advice. According to his wife, Alison, Rey was dissatisfied with his work at Stansbury Research, as his true passion was filmmaking. He left the job in 2005 to pursue new opportunities in Baltimore, where he took on a role as a water polo coach at Johns Hopkins University and began working on a new screenplay. Rey also launched a small production company, handling video projects for clients connected to Agora, including affiliates like the Oxford Club. As someone who works in video production and digital content creation, I know how important online security is. Whether handling client projects, researching sensitive topics, or just browsing the web, keeping my data safe is a priority. With over 7,000 servers in 113 countries, NordVPN ensures I can access content from around the world, making my research unrestricted and comprehensive. Cyber threats are everywhere. Phishing scams, fake websites, and data breaches. That's why I use NordVPN, the leading internet security provider. With just one click, NordVPN encrypts my online traffic, hides my IP address, and protects me from trackers. But NordVPN does more than just secure my browsing. It blocks malicious sites, phishing attempts, and fake online stores with their Threat Protection Pro feature. Their dark web monitor scans hacker forums and alerts me if my credentials are leaked. And the best part, right now, you can get a 2-year plan plus 4 extra months for free. With ultra-fast servers, a strict no-logs policy, and 24/7 customer support, there's no reason to wait. Take control of your online privacy today. Head to nordvpn.com/Voldar and try it risk-free for 30 days. In the spring of 2006, Rey and Alison visited Los Angeles and began planning a move to better support Rey's filmmaking aspirations. They had listed their Baltimore home for sale and were preparing for the transition to LA. On May 16, 2006, Rey Rivera began his day by preparing breakfast and bidding farewell to his wife, Alison, as she left for a business trip to Richmond, Virginia. Rey then spent the day working from home, focused on an editing project for Agora. He had even reserved an editing suite for the weekend to finalize a video. Throughout the day, Rey made a few phone calls, including one to a Freemason representative around 4 p.m., possibly related to a script idea he had been working on. The representative noted that Rey was laid back, friendly, but seemed pressed for time. At around 6:30 p.m., Alison's co-worker Claudia arrived at the house for an overnight stay. Rey continued working in his upstairs office until he suddenly received a phone call between 6:30 and 7 p.m. Claudia overheard Rey's surprised reaction. "Oh shit." He quickly grabbed his keys, cell phone, $20 in cash, and his credit card, then left the house in Alison's black Mitsubishi Montero without further explanation. Rey briefly returned to the house before leaving again without speaking to Claudia or leaving a note. The origin of the phone call was later traced to the switchboard at Agora, his employer. However, the details of the call remain unknown. This phone call marked the last known communication involving Rey before his disappearance. The next morning, Claudia called Alison to report that Rey hadn't come home, and lights were left on in his office and downstairs. Alison also tried calling Rey, but couldn't reach him. His silence alarmed her, prompting her to cut her trip short and rush back to Baltimore. Upon her return, Alison found several of Rey's belongings, including his laptop, a bag of chips, a sparkling water drink, his Invisalign, and his toothbrush left behind, suggesting he hadn't planned an overnight stay. Later that day, after numerous unsuccessful attempts to reach Rey, Alison filed a missing persons report with the Baltimore Police Department. In the days leading up to Rey's disappearance, friends and family observed signs of unusual behavior. Alison noticed that Rey appeared increasingly stressed and felt compelled to accompany her almost everywhere, as if he felt a need to protect her. One day, when Alison went jogging at a nearby track, Rey insisted on joining her. While she jogged, a man entered the track area and began walking towards her. Rey immediately jumped up from the bleachers and sprinted toward the man, who quickly left. One of Rey's close co-workers and friends, Tom Hickling, had recently died unexpectedly in a car accident while visiting his daughter in Africa. Allison observed that Tom's unexpected death deeply impacted Rey, who hinted at suspicions regarding the circumstances but chose not to provide specific details. Rey's stress became evident when their home alarm went off twice in the week before his disappearance. The first incident occurred early on May 15, 2006, at 1 a.m. Allison awoke to the sound of the alarm blaring and found Rey already out of bed, gripping a baseball bat and looking unusually fearful. Police arrived shortly afterward, but found no evidence of an intruder, suggesting that an animal might have triggered the alarm. The alarm went off again at the same hour the following night, and this time, Rey appeared even more distressed. Allison noticed that a living room window seemed to have been tampered with from the outside. Again, police suggested an animal was responsible, and the alarm did not sound again after that night. During the subsequent search, it became clear that Rey had been making future plans, including a trip to New Mexico with Allison, booked for the coming weeks. This only reinforced the belief that Rey did not intend to leave voluntarily. The Belvedere Hotel was built in 1903 to cater to the city's elite. Located at North Charles Street and East Chase Street, it became a Baltimore City landmark. In 1991, the hotel was converted into residential units, though some parts remained open to the public. The 11-story building stands 188 feet tall, featuring a stone base and a distinctive French-style roof. From the top level of the nearby parking garage, there's a view of a building connected to the Belvedere's second floor. On May 24, 2006, a strong smell had been lasting in the Belvedere Hotel for several days, particularly near an unused conference room. Initially, the smell was thought to be from a dead animal, but as it continued, the hotel sent a maintenance worker named Gary to investigate. Around 1:30 p.m., Gary entered the room and was immediately confronted with a shocking scene. Overwhelmed and in disbelief, he bolted from the room, rushing through the hotel in a panic. He passed several people as he made his way out of the building, eventually seeking refuge in a salon. There, still shaken, he asked for a drink to calm his nerves and explained that he had seen the body of Rey Rivera. That same day, 3 of Rey's co-workers, Mark Whistler, Stephen King, and George Rayburn, were carrying out their own search for Rey. George had been searching around the area and suggested they check the parking garage next to the Belvedere Hotel for any clues. When they reached the top of the garage, they spotted a small narrow hole in the roof of the hotel's second-floor extension. Around the hole, they saw Rey's personal belongings, 2 flip-flops, a cell phone, a set of keys, and a pair of eyeglasses. Alarmed by what they found, they called Detective James Mingle, who had already been involved in Rey's disappearance case. When the police arrived, they were led to the locked, unused conference room. Inside, they found Rey's body, confirming what Gary had reported earlier. Rey Rivera's body was discovered in an infrequently used conference room at the Belvedere Hotel, a space largely empty except for some old furniture. It's important to note that this conference room was accessible from Charles Street or the adjacent parking garage, offering a pathway from the street directly into the building. The roof where Rey Rivera's body was found was built from a durable gravel and tar mix typical of early 1900s commercial buildings. It was designed to bear substantial weight. No nearby structures were close enough for anyone to jump or fall onto this specific roof. Engineering simulations suggested that Rivera would have had to fall from a considerable height to create the hole in its exact location, yet no surrounding ledges or structures align with the spot. Accessing hotel's roof was complex, requiring a hidden attic ladder with 2 entry points, one behind the 13th floor bar and another through a 12th floor ballroom, both restricted to staff. A resident's keycard allowed elevator access only to the 10th floor, while higher floors required concierge assistance to unlock the elevator. The Belvedere Hotel had updated to a keycard system. However, it was later found that the elevator to the roof was often left unlocked. Many fire doors lacked alarms, and the security cameras were frequently non-functional. Bartenders at the 13th floor bar also left the roof access door unlocked while using it for smoking breaks. No surveillance footage showed Rivera entering or leaving the building on May 16th, and rooftop cameras, operational the day before and after, had been strangely disconnected the night he vanished. The hole in the roof appeared larger from inside the room, with collapsed beams, stained carpet, dried insect larvae in the back corner, and chunks of plaster. This oblong hole, about 45 by 33 inches, seemed large enough to suggest that a human body could have created it. The ceiling material was flexible enough to possibly break under the force of a falling body, yet forensics couldn't confirm if it was made by a person. Rey's eyeglasses were found near the hole on the lower roof, almost untouched with no cracks or bends despite the violent fall. Nearby, his phone was also undamaged, with no shattered screen or dents. Forensic tests on the phone revealed no useful information about recent calls or messages. Rey's flip-flops were also found near the hole. Though scratched, they were otherwise intact. One of the straps was broken and drag marks were found around them, but nothing conclusively linked these to the fall itself. His cherished antique money clip, a wedding gift from Allison inscribed with his initials, was missing, though his American Express card and driver's license were found in his pockets. Allison had seen him pocket it on the morning of his disappearance, but despite thorough searches, it was never found. Rey was last seen in a black jacket and flip-flops, yet when found, he wore a yellow shirt and long green pants. The autopsy of Rey Rivera revealed extensive injuries, fractures to his skull, ribs, and leg, with additional cuts and bruising on his face and torso. The injuries to his head and face were particularly notable, yet investigators were perplexed by the lack of defensive wounds. No scratches or marks on his hands or arms indicated any struggle. Dr. Melissa Brassel, the medical examiner, stated Rivera's injuries were consistent with a fall from the Belvedere Hotel's 13-story rooftop. Traces of alcohol were found, but not enough to suggest intoxication, and no drugs were present. The autopsy concluded with the cause of death as undetermined. Forensic experts examining Rey Rivera's injuries found several inconsistencies that cast doubt on the theory of a simple fall. Marie Dauenheimer, a medical illustrator specializing in autopsy reconstructions, noted that falls from height usually result in extensive foot injuries, especially if the person lands feet first, yet Rivera's feet showed minimal damage. Furthermore, the majority of his injuries were concentrated on his left side, a pattern atypical for falls, where injuries tend to be more symmetrical. Marie also observed minimal damage to Rivera's spine, a part of the body typically severely impacted in high falls due to the force absorbed upon landing. Forensic biomechanics expert Miriam Moya raised further doubts. She noted the broken strap on one of Rivera's flip-flops, suggesting it might indicate a struggle or trauma before the fall. Moya also pointed out the uneven concentration of injuries on one side of Rivera's body. There was a 6-hour gap between the time Rivera left his house and the crash heard around 10 p.m. at the Belvedere Hotel. The autopsy, however, revealed traces of potato chips in his stomach, which suggested he likely died not long after leaving home. Preliminary observations of Rey Rivera's case suggested a fall, but the locked nature of the room, the absence of clear CCTV footage showing him entering the hotel, and the relatively undamaged items raised more questions than answers. As the investigation progressed, several irregularities stood out regarding the theory that Rivera had jumped off the main roof of the Belvedere Hotel. Due to the hotel's mansard roof, there was a significant horizontal distance between the roof and the hole in the lower roof where Rivera's body was found. The vertical fall of approximately 177 feet would have taken about 3.3 seconds. For Rivera to have traveled the horizontal distance of 43 feet before impact, he would have had to reach a speed of 10 miles per hour, similar to a fast run or sprint for an average fit person wearing appropriate footwear. However, Rivera was in flip-flops or barefoot and would have had only about 15 feet to run before launching himself. During further investigation, a puzzling note was found behind Rivera's computer at his home. The note, typed in small print, folded and taped to his home computer screen, was addressed to brothers and sisters and included a blank check. It contained references to a video game and began and ended with the phrase, "Whom virtue unites, death cannot separate," a well-known Masonic motto. The note listed famous figures such as Christopher Reeve and Stanley Kubrick, alongside people Rivera knew personally. Oddly, it also contained a request to make these individuals and Rivera himself 5 years younger. Investigators sent the note to the FBI for analysis, but the FBI concluded it wasn't suggestive of intentional harm. It contained personal references, along with mentions of recent inventions like PDAs, flash drives, the Human Genome Project, Bluetooth, hybrid engines, Wi-Fi, and Viagra-type drugs. Allison confirmed to the police that she and Rey had previously visited the roof of the Belvedere Hotel to watch the sunset. This detail became significant when it was discovered that, on the day of his disappearance, Rey left his computer running with a website showing the exact time of sunset in Baltimore. This led investigators to consider whether Rey intended to visit the roof that day. Following these findings, the BPD eventually stepped back from their investigation into the case, ruling Rivera's death as a probable self-inflicted incident. In the weeks after Rey Rivera's death, the Baltimore Police Commissioner Fred Bielfeld stated, "There's not been one scintilla of information developed that would indicate there was anything criminal associated with Mr. Rivera's death." FBI experts analyzing the cryptic note behind Rivera's computer speculated he might have had undiagnosed schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. Rivera had reportedly become withdrawn and paranoid before his disappearance. Behavioral experts suggested these mood changes and fear could signal a psychotic break, noting that 50% of such cases involve jumping from buildings, supporting this theory. Some experts theorize that Rey Rivera may have experienced Truman Show delusion, a rare condition where people believe they're participants in a staged, controlled scenario. In the note, Rivera mentioned The Game, a film where the protagonist, caught in an elaborate scheme, ultimately leaps from a building. Proponents of this theory suggest that Rivera, in a psychotic state, may have believed he had uncovered the truth about being part of a larger scheme. Inspired by The Game, Rivera might have intended to replicate the film's climactic scene, where the protagonist jumps through a glass ceiling, expecting this act to lead to a profound, victorious revelation. In addition to that, Rivera reportedly drank grapefruit juice on the day he vanished. Given grapefruit's known interactions with medications used to treat conditions like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, this detail led some to speculate that the juice may have influenced his mental state, potentially triggering or intensifying a psychotic episode. Early on, the only detective who suspected foul play was reassigned just 3 weeks into the case. Some speculate that someone within the BPD may have influenced the investigation. The mishandling of the scene was evident. Few photos were taken of Rey's body or his belongings on the roof, and witnesses noted that officers were seen tossing Rey's items from the roof down into the room below, while joking and overlooking standard procedures for evidence collection. In Mikita Brotman's book, An Unexplained Death, The True Story of a Body at the Belvedere, she describes how roughly 15 police cadets were allowed to walk through the area, effectively turning the scene into a training exercise rather than preserving. After Rey's body was removed, no security measures were put in place. There was no tape or barrier to prevent entry, and the room was accessible to building staff and curious onlookers. After exiting the second-floor elevator of the Belvedere Hotel, a right turn and a short walk down the hallway led to the room where his body was found. The parking garage entrance at the hallway's end allowed access to anyone without entering the hotel first. Yet, neither the garage nor any surveillance footage was examined. The medical examiner concluded that Rivera's injuries were consistent with a fall from a great height, except for his broken legs, leading some to speculate they were broken before the fall. In the autopsy, the manner of death was ruled as undetermined. Baltimore investigative journalist Stephen Janis believes Rivera was murdered and the scene staged. He argued that the case was closed prematurely due to heavy caseloads in both the medical examiner's office and the police department. Despite widespread acceptance of this theory, Rivera's family remained unconvinced. Allison argued that, as a writer, Rey would have left a clear explanation if he intended to end his life. "He was not a quitter. This doesn't add up," she said. According to this theory, Rivera may have been fatally struck by falling debris or building material. The Belvedere, an old building in constant need of repairs, had structural vulnerabilities that could have contributed to such an accident. In her book, author Mikita Brotman, who lived at the Belvedere at the time, recalled hearing a loud crash around 10 p.m. on the night of Rivera's disappearance. She noted the sound in her journal, initially assuming it was caused by a car accident. When she looked outside and saw nothing unusual, she dismissed it as typical city noise. Her apartment, located on the 5th floor with east-facing windows, directly overlooked the roof where the hole was found. A significant piece of evidence supporting this theory was an old banquet chair dangling off the edge of the Belvedere Hotel's roof, caught by one of its metal legs. Some suggest it may have been used to access the roof, as the rooftop doors were typically locked and not easily accessible. Others argue that the chair's position resulted from strong winds or structural instability. The hole in the roof may have been caused by falling debris that fatally struck Rivera. It is speculated that the debris blended into the overall damage in the room, making it difficult to identify as the direct cause of his death. Reports from the room where Rivera's body was found describe plaster everywhere, suggesting something heavy broke through the ceiling. More evidence emerged when images from the Netflix series Unsolved Mysteries showed a missing piece of a corner decoration on the building's exterior, which some believe may have caused the hole. A major question remains: why was Rivera at that particular spot? Some theories suggest he may have been taking a shortcut to his car or smoking in a familiar area, since he often visited the upstairs bar and worked just a block away. However, there were no confirmed sightings of Rivera at the bar that night. Even if he had been there, it remains unclear why he would have accessed the roof, which was off limits to condominium owners, despite their legal access to residential floors. Investigative journalist Stephen Janis suggested that given the hole and given that nobody saw him enter the building, he had to come from somewhere else. This remark fueled numerous online theories, including one suggesting that Rivera might have fallen from a helicopter. This could explain how his body ended up at the Belvedere Hotel, particularly if he had uncovered incriminating information about his employer and friend, Porter Stansbury. Detective Michael Bayer, however, dismissed the helicopter theory, citing airspace issues and stating that helicopters wouldn't fly that low in Baltimore. Yet, Belvedere Hotel employee Gary Shivers contradicted this, noting that helicopters frequently flew near the area, just a few blocks away. Michael Bayer also pointed out that if someone intended to dispose of a body using a helicopter, the nearby harbor would have been a more logical location. Author Mikita Brotman in her book disagreed as well, arguing that if a helicopter had been involved, locals would have likely heard the noise. Rivera's brother Angel revealed on a radio show that the family had looked into air traffic control records, which track unregistered flights over the city. They also investigated private helicopter rentals, but found no evidence of any near the Belvedere at the time of his death. Baltimore does experience frequent helicopter traffic due to large hospitals and high crime rates, but no concrete evidence has ever supported this theory. Some theorize that Rey Rivera and Porter Stansbury were involved with the Freemasons, and that Rey's cryptic note was part of an initiation ritual. A key detail in the note was the mention of "my primary residence in Argentina." Bill Bonner, founder of Agora, owns a home there, leading some to believe the note documented a Masonic meeting involving Rey, Porter, and Bonner. Allison confirmed that Rey had been reading about Freemasonry and had recently shown interest in joining. The blank check found with the note may have been intended for his initiation fee, which could explain why he recently took out a $15,000 loan. According to this theory, Rey received a call that day instructing him to attend a final meeting at the Grand Lodge, explaining his sudden departure. His casual clothes and sandals may indicate he expected to change into ceremonial attire. After a brief meeting, the group allegedly moved to the Belvedere Hotel for the final test. On the rooftop, Rey may have been forced to jump, believing there was a safe landing, similar to a scene from the game. Scuff marks on his sandals and a broken strap suggest he struggled before being pushed. Following the incident, surveillance footage was erased, and Porter distanced himself, lawyering up. Rey's growing anxiety may have stemmed from fears for Allison's safety, believing his Freemason involvement put her at risk. But I would like to add that Allison later clarified the $15,000 loan claim for Freemasonry initiation was false. A darker theory suggests that Rey was never inside the hotel on the night of his death. Instead, it proposes that his killers met him at his car, lured him to a secluded location, and murdered him. They then staged the scene by creating the hole in the roof around 10 p.m. After placing Rey's body inside, they removed the object that originally caused the hole and left the scene. This theory also raises the possibility that the roof camera was intentionally turned off to support the narrative of a self-inflicted act, suggesting a professional hit. Another version of this theory suggests that Rivera went to the top of the parking garage to meet someone and was struck by a car. His phone and glasses may have been knocked loose on impact and later ended up off the garage deck. According to this theory, Rivera was on the parking garage deck when the car hit him, sending him through the roof below. The hole in the roof was approximately 30 feet from the garage wall, which itself stood 3.5 feet high. This raises the question, could a body travel that distance after being hit by a car, and with what force would it land? To determine whether Rivera's body could have traveled 30 feet horizontally when launched at a 20-degree angle with an initial speed of 30 miles per hour, we can use the horizontal range equation. The calculations indicate that an object launched at 30 miles per hour at a 20-degree angle would travel approximately 38 feet, exceeding the 30-foot claim. Based on the maximum height equation, the object would reach 3.5 feet, allowing it to clear the 3.5-foot barrier. The building on the other side of the garage is approximately 30 feet below, raising the next question. Would a 260-pound body falling 30 feet generate enough force to break through the roof? Using the gravitational potential energy formula, we get approximately 10.5 kJ, which is enough energy to cause significant damage upon impact, again making this theory plausible. To put it in perspective, a 3,300 pounds car moving at 8.4 miles per hour carries about the same amount of kinetic energy. The garage layout would allow a car to reach the necessary speed and stop before hitting the barrier. Some have argued that the BPD should have checked local auto body shops for recent hood repairs, but they clearly failed to do so. The crime may have been carefully timed to occur while Stansbury was out of town. Some have suggested that Porter Stansbury acquired a new vehicle around the time of Rivera's death. However, despite extensive research, I could not find any credible evidence to support this claim. One crucial detail in Rivera's case was the mysterious phone call he received just before he disappeared. The call came from Agora's switchboard, but it couldn't be traced to a specific person or office, as Agora oversees over 40 businesses, making it difficult to pinpoint the caller's origin. In an interview with the Baltimore Sun, Porter Stansbury claimed his company was on a retreat at the time, making it unlikely that anyone from his office made the call. Rivera's reaction to the call was unsettling. There was no indication of an actual conversation. Was the call suddenly cut off? Did Rivera hang up in haste, or was it an automated message? According to some, if the police had thoroughly examined the PBX switchboard records, they might have been able to trace the call's origin, as these systems typically log extension numbers. However, despite extensive research, I could not confirm whether this detail applies to Agora's system specifically. The caller's identity remains unknown despite repeated pleas from his family for someone to come forward. In the aftermath of Rivera's death, Porter Stansbury quickly lawyered up and placed a gag order on his employees, further fueling speculation about whether he or his company knew more than they disclosed. According to this theory, Porter Stansbury manipulated Rivera into working for him by promising writing opportunities while secretly involving him in shady dealings. Since Stansbury's company specialized in investment research, some believe that Rivera had uncovered sensitive financial information at Agora, possibly involving insider trading or market manipulation. A year before Rey joined, Agora and Stansbury had both been found guilty of SEC violations, with Stansbury fined $1.5 million for disseminating false information to clients. Rey may have realized the extent of the deception and planned to expose it. This could explain his final call to Porter where he said, "I figured it out," and his references to the game in his note. Jane Miller, a WBAL TV reporter, spoke on the podcast Land of the Unsolved, revealing she had connected with Jennifer, one of Rivera's closest friends, who warned her that if the investigation continued, there could be serious consequences. "The people who killed Rey will stop at nothing," she said. She even recounted how a local reporter investigating the case came home one day to find his house burned down. Though police ruled it an accident, the reporter distanced himself from the case afterward. Angel, Rivera's brother, revealed that Stansbury and Associates had sent a cease and desist letter to Netflix over the airing of Unsolved Mysteries. Despite legal threats, the show aired after extensive fact-checking. After Rey's death, one of the concerning details was the unusual interest someone had in his computers while they were held by the police. The producer of Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries, Terry Dunn Muir, stated, "When Allison went to the police station to pick up Rey's computer, the detective mentioned that someone had called a couple of times, asking to pick them up and showing a lot of interest in their status." After connecting Rivera's death to Stansbury's SEC conviction in a news article, Miller received an angry email from Agora's lawyers stating that Rey was a childhood friend of many people who worked at Agora, and the connection you are trying to make is deplorable. According to Mikita Brotman's book, Rey first met Claudia during a flight. Though Claudia was a friend of Rey, she is consistently referred to as Allison's colleague. Some find it unusual that Allison left him alone with a female colleague overnight. This detail seems especially odd, considering that Allison was highly suspicious of many aspects surrounding Rey's death, yet appeared untroubled by Claudia's presence. Much of what is known about Claudia's involvement comes through second-hand reports, and her direct statements remain limited. Adding to the mystery, Claudia left for New York the day after Rey's death. Despite being the last person to see him alive, her version of events has been largely accepted without deeper scrutiny. While there's no implication that Claudia played a direct role in Rey's death, her absence from further investigations and documentaries, despite her key role in the timeline, has led some to question whether more details could be uncovered from her perspective. One of the most debated aspects of Rivera's death is whether he could have physically made the jump. For Rivera to clear 42 to 45 feet, he needed a running start of approximately 11.5 miles per hour. Olympic sprinters can reach 20 to 25 miles per hour, and even an average physically active person can sprint at 12 to 15 miles per hour. With a 6'5" frame and a weight of 260 pounds, along with his history as a water polo player, Rivera likely had the explosive leg strength needed to generate the speed required for a running jump within the 50 feet of clearance available on the rooftop. Rivera's fall from 140 feet placed him in free fall for approximately 3 seconds. In comparison, Olympic long jumpers remain airborne for about 1 second and can cover 25 to 30 feet in that time. With triple the airtime, Rivera's horizontal momentum would have continued uninterrupted, making it entirely possible for him to clear more than 40 feet before hitting the roof below. While running in flip-flops is difficult, people have been known to sprint short distances in unstable footwear in moments of adrenaline-fueled distress. On the contrary, if he had been pushed or thrown, his trajectory would have been unpredictable rather than aligning with the physics of a running leap. Rivera was in a distressed state of mind in the days leading up to his disappearance. Witnesses described him as exhibiting erratic behavior, and his sudden departure after receiving a phone call suggests an impulsive action, possibly fueled by distress or panic. The Belvedere rooftop is significant because Rey and Allison had previously visited the hotel's 13th floor, which offers a panoramic view of the city. Investigators also discovered that Rey had visited a webpage displaying the sunset time for that day on his computer, which some speculate could indicate he was planning to be outside around that time. The lounge's proximity to the roof suggests that Rivera was familiar with the building's height and layout. Additionally, reports of an external fire escape near the rooftop have led to speculation that Rey might have used it, possibly along with the chair later found hanging from the rooftop, to climb up. Rivera was in distress, possibly experiencing paranoia or delusional thinking. Once on the rooftop, whether in a moment of impulsivity or disorientation, he ran toward the edge and jumped. While some theories suggest murder or coercion, no solid evidence supports these claims. No surveillance footage or eyewitness testimony indicates that Rivera was followed, abducted, or escorted to the roof. His injuries were largely consistent with a high-velocity fall, and there were no defensive wounds suggesting a struggle before impact. The hole in the roof, though debated, could have resulted from the force of Rivera's body, combined with structural weaknesses or debris that fell alongside him. Additionally, while Rivera's loved ones did not believe he was in a troubled state, a person's mental condition is not always apparent to others. and those in crisis often show little to no warning signs. Every alternative theory, murder, coercion, or conspiracy, introduces additional assumptions and unverified scenarios that lack supporting evidence. Applying Occam's razor, the simplest explanation, requiring the fewest assumptions, is that Rivera's death resulted from a tragic, self-initiated fall in a moment of distress or disorientation. Did you know that you can now become a knight, lord, or even a king, just like King Darlord Vader, by becoming a member of this YouTube channel? Check out the awesome perks for each level, and thank you so much for your support.